My name is Lena Carter. I was 17 the night my father decided my future was something he could throw away. He didn't yell, he didn't slam the table. He just looked at the envelope in my hands, the one with the university logo in blue ink across the corner, and said the words that still echo in my memory like a door slamming shut. No daughter of mine is leaving this house for college. Then he tore the letter in half, right there at the dinner table, right in front of my grandmother, right in front of my little brother, right in front of the life I thought I was about to start. The sound of paper ripping is a strange thing to remember so clearly. It's not loud, but when it's tearing apart something you worked for in secret for almost a year, it sounds like thunder. That envelope had everything inside it. A scholarship, an acceptance letter, a future that didn't involve washing someone else's dishes or apologizing for wanting more. 9 months of essays written after midnight, applications filled out in the quiet corners of my high school library, a guidance counselor who believed in me when I barely believed in myself. All of it reduced to 4 pieces of paper sitting in gravy on a dinner plate. For a second, nobody spoke. Not my father, not my brother, not my uncle who had suddenly become very interested in his mashed potatoes. The only person who didn't look shocked was my grandmother. And at the time, I didn't understand why. Before I tell you what she did next, let me take you back a little, because nothing that happened that night makes sense unless you understand the house I grew up in. From the outside, our house looked like the kind of place where normal families lived. White siding, a tidy lawn, a porch swing that creaked in the summer breeze. Neighbors waved when you walked past. From the street, it looked peaceful. But inside that house, everything had rules. Dinner was at 6 o'clock sharp. The thermostat stayed at 63 in winter because my father said warmth was a luxury. The television remote belonged to him. The living room belonged to him. The silence belonged to him too. My father liked control the way some people like oxygen. He needed it. My mom used to say he wasn't always like that. I barely remember the version of him she talked about, because when I was 9 years old, my mom got sick. Breast cancer. Fast. Too fast. By the time doctors found it, the disease had already decided how the story would end. She died the spring I turned 10, and when she did, the house changed. At first, it was small things. Pictures of my mom disappeared from the walls. Then bigger things. The laughter disappeared. Then the rules started multiplying. I became the one who cooked dinner, the one who packed lunches, the one who made sure my brother Tyler got on the bus every morning. By 13, I could roast a chicken, scrub bathroom tile, and fold a week's worth of laundry without being asked. My father called it responsibility, but deep down I knew something else. I wasn't being raised, I was being managed. At school, things were different. Teachers asked me questions about my future, about what I wanted. No one had ever asked me that at home. When my guidance counselor, Mrs. Harper, asked what I wanted to do with my life, the answer slipped out before I could stop it. I want to be a nurse. I don't even know why I said it. Maybe because I remembered the way nurses had spoken softly to my mom during her last weeks. Maybe because helping people felt like the opposite of the house I lived in. Mrs. Harper didn't laugh. She just smiled and said, "Then let's figure out how to get you there." That's how the secret began. College applications filled out during lunch breaks, essay drafts written in the corner of her office, fee waivers, scholarship forms, and the one thing my father could never find: hope. For months, everything happened quietly. Letters from universities were sent to my grandmother's address. Phone calls were made from the school office. The plan was simple: get accepted, get enough financial aid, tell my father when it was too late for him to stop me. But life doesn't always respect plans. because one afternoon in March, my grandmother called me. Her voice sounded strange, like someone trying not to say something too loudly. "Your letter came," she said. "Penn State accepted you." I sat on the floor of Mrs. Harper's office and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. I thought that moment was the beginning of my freedom. I didn't realize it was actually the beginning of a war. The night of the dinner table confrontation came 2 weeks later. My grandmother had insisted we tell my father together. She came early, sat at the end of the table the way she always did, her coat folded neatly over the back of her chair. Dinner was normal at first. Chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes. My father even complimented the food, which should have been my first warning. Then I slid the envelope across the table, and everything changed. You already know what happened next. The torn letter, the words, the silence. But what you don't know yet is what happened 30 seconds later. My grandmother slowly set her napkin down. She stood up, and she said 6 words that would change everything. "Pack your things. She's leaving tonight." My father laughed. Not a nervous laugh, a real laugh, like she'd just told a joke that wasn't very funny. "Leaving with what money?" he asked. "Where exactly do you think she's going?" My grandmother didn't answer him. She simply reached into her handbag and placed a piece of paper on the table. It was a property deed. The house we had lived in for almost 20 years wasn't my father's. It had never been his. The house belonged to my grandmother. She had bought it after my grandfather died. She had allowed my father to live there. Allowed. That one word shattered something inside him. Because suddenly, the man who had spent 2 decades declaring, "My house, my rules," realized something terrifying. The house had never been his. Not the walls, not the kitchen, not the dinner table where he had just tried to destroy my future. None of it. My grandmother looked directly at him and spoke with a calm voice I had never heard before. "You have a choice," she said. "She goes to college with my support, or you find somewhere else to live." My father stared at the deed like it had personally betrayed him. But there was no arguing with ink and signatures, no shouting at legal documents. For the first time in my life, the loudest person in the room had nothing to say. That night, I packed a single backpack. Clothes, my school notebooks, a photograph of my mom holding me at a county fair. My brother hugged me in the hallway like he was afraid I might disappear. My father stood by the door watching. When I walked past him, he said something I will never forget. "If you leave, don't come back." I paused. For years, those words would have terrified me. But something had changed. The lock on the cage had finally opened. So I said the only thing I could. "I'm not leaving my family. I'm leaving your control." Then I walked out the door. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. There were court hearings, eviction notices, a town full of people whispering about a disrespectful daughter. My father tried to convince everyone he was the victim, but paperwork doesn't lie, and eventually the truth spread faster than the rumors. He moved into a small apartment across town. My grandmother rented the house to another family, and me? I moved into a dorm room with cinder block walls and a roommate who talked in her sleep. The first night there, I sat on my bed surrounded by textbooks and realized something strange. No one was telling me what I couldn't do. No one was checking the thermostat. No one was watching the clock. Freedom is a quiet feeling. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it just feels like breathing for the first time. 2 months later, I made the dean's list. My phone rang that night. It was my father. He didn't say much, just one sentence. "I saw your name online." A long pause. "Your mother would have been proud." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing I'd heard in years. I still don't know if we'll ever fix everything between us. Maybe some things aren't meant to be fixed. Maybe they're meant to be survived. But here's what I know for sure. Dreams don't die because someone tears up a letter, and power doesn't belong to the person who shouts the loudest. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who quietly slides a piece of paper across the table and changes someone's entire life. If you've ever had someone tell you your dreams were too big, too expensive, too unrealistic, remember this story. Because sometimes all it takes to change everything is one person who refuses to let you stay small. And if you're listening to this right now, maybe that person is you.